Welcome to the Rockin Rich Lynch on the Radio Show. I'm your host, Rockin Rich Lynch, inviting you to join me as we discover great new music by bands and artists from around the world. With interviews, music news and reviews, great prizes, and a whole lot more. Visit us online today at soundpress.net for great music promotion and publicity. Hi, this is Rockin Rich Lynch, and you're listening to the very best of Rockin Rich Lynch on the radio. We recently moved our operations from the New York, New Jersey market to Nashville, Tennessee, and we are now looking for a production and broadcast partner in the region to take the radio show to new heights. If you're a band, musician, solo act, or represent a musical project in any genre, please visit soundpress.net and our new site, musiccitynashville.net, to learn how we can help get your message to the world. Now, please enjoy this great interview from our archives. So everybody, today I am continuing my series of talking to people I idolized when I was growing up. Well, you know...
That's some flattery right there. It'll get you everywhere.
Well, you know, you were one of the bands that, you know, just the way you guys emerged, and being in the New York, New Jersey area, we couldn't, you know, not be familiar with the Hooters. But let me back this up. We are talking with Eric Bazilian of the Hooters. HootersMusic.com is the website. And it's great to have you guys back, Eric.
It's great to be back.
So we're going to get to the new CD in a minute, but what I'd like to do, the new CD is called Time Stand Still, but I'd like to start off chronologically and move through the years a little bit, if that's okay with you. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I read that you were inspired by the Beatles like so many others were.
Absolutely. February 9th, 1964. Ed Sullivan's show.
Yeah, isn't that kind of amazing how many lives were affected at that one moment in time? It's like we all had an epiphany, or you guys. I was too young for that, but...
Yeah, you know, I think the world had an epiphany. I mean, I think that was really one of the most significant cultural events in human history. Right there, just all the chain reaction of events that were triggered from that moment, from that 1 hour. In fact, it's funny that you bring that up because I just did an assembly at my daughter's school, elementary school, and I showed the kids the Beatles' first performance on Ed Sullivan.
Oh, cool!
And they were just transfixed.
Would you have it on DVD or something?
Yeah. There's a DVD that not only does it have the Beatles' performances, it has the entire show.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess in 72 I was 7 years old, so that would be about 9 years after the fact, maybe 8 years after the fact. So, I mean, you know, I kind of came into it around then, but definitely I talked to a lot of people. I talked to, like, Chris Difford of Squeeze, who said the exact same thing. You know, saw the Beatles and knew that's what he was going to do for the rest of his life. So it really... really kind of cool how, you know, moments in time do have certain impacts. And, you know, your new CD is called Time Stand Still, but the ironic thing is that time really doesn't stand still.
No, it really doesn't. But the whole point of the song and the record is just the fact that, you know, there are times when it feels like it does, and there are times when you want to make it feel like it does.
Now, you got to see the Beatles live.
I did, twice.
When and where?
The first time I saw them was in Baltimore in August of 1964, and the second time was in Philadelphia in '66.
So was it all a scream fest, or was there any music that you could, you know, hear and enjoy?
I actually could hear everything. So it was really. You know, I remember every song and being able to hear every note. There was a good deal of screaming, but you know, the music definitely emerged from behind all of that.
I mean, how long would a Beatles show run back then?
About 40 minutes.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you got to meet 3 out of 4 of the members of the Beatles.
I did. I got to meet all but John at various points, and it was really very inspiring and ego gratifying in each case.
Yeah, that's great. It's always tough to think about it, you know, when going back to 1980, and then, you know, the way George left us. It's, you know, it's sort of sad, but you know, the music definitely lives on.
Yeah, well, absolutely. It's like life. It just goes on, and you make the best of every day, every minute.
All right. Well, if the listeners aren't jealous enough already, we started out as a Springsteen fan site in 1999 and kind of transformed into a music magazine kind of promotion company type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But we started out as a Springsteen fan site, and I read that in the early 70s you got to see Bruce like 30 times.
Yeah, I saw him a whole bunch of times in between 73, 4, and 5. I actually mixed him for a couple of songs, which he still doesn't know about. It just happened to be friends of mine were doing sound for him, and they just one of them had to go to the bathroom, so I hopped in and mixed him. I remember I made his guitar louder.
You hooterized some E Street Band.
Well, they kind of have their own hooterization.
So
guys.
You were obviously a fan then. What about Springsteen drew you in?
In a way, seeing Springsteen live was as significant as the Beatles for me. I'd never seen anyone perform like him. I still think I think he's the best that ever was live. Just the way he commands an audience and leads a band. Not to mention his songs, his singing, and his guitar playing.
Now, have you seen him since?
Of course, yeah, I've seen him many times. I saw him last year.
Right, on the Magic Tour.
Yep.
Well, that's cool. So yeah, I mean, so you definitely were a Bruce fan. You drank the Bruce juice early on, but yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I've probably seen him 20 times and saw him in New Jersey a bunch of times. And my brother actually, my brother was how old's my brother? My brother's like 9 years older than I am, and he grew up liking the Allman Brothers and the Grateful Dead. And then he then his life changed in 1970 when he became a huge Poco fan.
Poco, wow.
Yeah. So, everybody kind of makes fun of my brother Dan, but Poco's still out there doing it too. But I got to take him to see Springsteen where he lives in Rochester back in 2003, and then I told my brother Dan that the next thing we got to do is see Bruce together in Asbury Park, which we were able to do. And then Bruce, Bruce just played Rochester last week. I wasn't able to go, but he just told me that man, that guy can make you go to the mountaintop.
Yep, he really can. When he's really on it, it's just beyond.
Now, I know you also like the Grateful Dead a little bit early on.
I really did, and to this day, I still think that there are moments of the moments they had that are among the best musical moments ever. So your
tastes are kind of eclectic.
My tastes are very eclectic. Yeah, I mean, I like anything that's good. I remember I used to catch a lot of crap from people, but because I would go see the Who one night and then the Dead the next night. They didn't understand how I could like both.
Yeah, well, I think it all pays off. Like when you're going to be a rock and roller or rock star for your career, it doesn't hurt taking in as much different elements as you can.
Absolutely. And again, to me, there was no difference. The Who were the Who doing the Who, and the Dead were the Dead doing the Dead. The main difference was that with the Who, you couldn't get from one night to the next. Whereas with the Dead, it was kind of a crapshoot.
Right. Now with Bruce, the Beatles, the Dead, are there any other bands that you've seen in a live setting that are equally transformative?
Yeah, there have been many. I mean, one in particular was the Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Right. I've heard about them. Never got a chance to check that out though.
They sort of invented jazz rock fusion back in 72, I guess 71, 72 was their first album. It was a bunch of jazz guys who put together this just absolutely transcendent rock and roll thing, all instrumental. They had the first electric violinist I'd ever seen, a guy named Jerry Goodman. John Bachman was the guitarist. He came out with a double-neck Gibson plugged into a Marshall stack, and they proceeded to blow the room away. And I saw them probably 10 times back then, and that was life-altering for me. And there have been so many artists like that. There's some that no one on this side of the Atlantic has ever heard of. A couple of Swedish artists that just changed my life.
Well, I know for a time you were a serious rock photographer, and
Yep.
at Quebec I wear a lot of the hats, and there's nothing better I like to do than get in the pit and try to get the shot. What are some of the bands that you got to shoot, and did seeing any of these acts up close prepare you in any way for the rock career you would ascend to?
Well, let's see. Most notable, I mean, I have, pictures I took of Hendrix, The Who. I actually have pictures I took of The Who the night Tommy was released in the United States. I have the Stones. I've got Pink Floyd, Cream, Jeff Beck, Jefferson Airplane, 10 Years After the Dead. I mean, just, the list goes on and on. Actually, I have a picture I took of the Beatles somewhere from far away. But it did prepare me. It definitely did. And I got to go backstage a lot. It was sort of like that movie Almost Famous, except I was a photographer instead of a writer.
Right. That's easier, in a way. You don't have to...
In a way, yep. But it was cool. I mean, and my main goal was to get backstage and then pick up the artist's guitars and then blow them away with what I really did best.
Was playing lead.
Playing guitar, yep. I remember when I got backstage with 10 Years After, I picked up Alvin Lee's guitar and started playing Woodchopper's Ball faster than he did.
Wow.
I was 15, and and when I was 15, I looked 12, so it was doubly bizarre for them.
They're like, it probably doesn't quite go together when you see a 12-year-old kid just pick up a guitar and wail out like that sometimes. But a lot of
them are pretty unusual.
Now, what's the secret to getting a good photograph?
Being there, paying attention, and getting lucky.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of it is luck, camera settings.
Yep, I mean, and there were no digital cameras back then, obviously, and I spent more of my time in the darkroom than I did taking pictures. But I loved being in the darkroom. Yeah,
it's a whole other thing that's kind of changed with everything.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about the Hooters. What was it like for you when Nervous Night broke out in 1985 and you went from a regionally known act into a national act overnight?
It was, we were kind of like deer in the headlights at the time. It had gone from being all about the music to being all about fame and promotion and, getting out there, and it became more about the people than about the music for a while. But that was fine. I mean, that's what we had worked for. It was a bit of a task to keep the music first, which I think we always did.
Yeah, because for a time you guys were like, one of the biggest bands happening at the moment. And the Hooters, you guys put out some really good uplifting music, party music, but it wasn't all, it seemed like you guys wrote lyrics of a higher calling at times, that you weren't just the standard, party and girls type stuff.
Sure, absolutely. Well, that's what we continue to do.
Yeah, you brought a good vibe into that. Now, you were part of two big events in rock history, opening up the Philadelphia portion of Live Aid in 1985, and then you got to play with Roger Waters at the Wall concert in Berlin in 1990, I think that was.
That was 1990, yep, and we did the Amnesty show at Giant Stadium in 86.
Well, for the two events that I mentioned, could you feel the greatness of the moment? Could you feel the history happening as you were participating?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Live Aid was so quick. We played 2 songs, so it was over by the time it started. Whereas the Wall, we were really involved in the whole process. We were there for 3 days of rehearsals, and the whole show. So I felt like I was able to sink my teeth into it a lot more. But definitely felt that we were watching history.
Yeah, I remember for Live Aid, I was in my bedroom. I had probably about 10 VHS tapes, and I was just popping them into the machine. I watched, the whole thing, all 12 or 16 hours, whatever it was, pretty much nonstop. I loved that day.
Yep. That was quite a day.
Now, how about two prominent ladies in your life? First was Cyndi Lauper. Basically, if people don't know it, the Hooters were basically the backing band on Cyndi Lauper's debut, She's So Unusual, which was pretty much one of the best-selling records of the MTV era. That's not a bad And now that was before you guys actually launched with the Hooters, so that wasn't really a bad launching pad for you.
No, it wasn't at all. It was a great opportunity for us. You know, it was making that record. We really learned a lot about record production and songs. It really prepared us, I think, for the next phase, which was making really the major label Hooters records.
And they were good too.
I like to think so.
Now listen, in 1995, you of course wrote the song. Well, you know, again, people might know it, but Eric wrote the song "One of Us" for Joan Osborne, and there was a bit of controversy with that song. That I think some religious groups, you know, at one point embraced the song, while others kind of maybe shied away from it. As you know, some people called it blasphemous at some point. Do you remember what any of the controversy surrounding the song was?
You know, 99% of it was positive. I remember there was one group in particular, which wasn't even really a religious group. It was a political group who protested at the Grammys. They said, and I quote, "The song raises questions."
It did. Didn't the song raise a bunch of questions?
It was all the song is. You know, if God had a name, what would it be? Would you call it toothpaste? What if God was one of us? The whole song is one big question. But just the idea that someone would take exception to the idea of raising questions, to me, that is the epitome of stupidity.
Right. I mean, in any field of endeavor, I mean, I think I know you have a bit of a scientific background. Questioning is the key element in all of that. I think we should be raising questions when it comes to politics and religion. Isn't that trying to answer, you know, the most fundamental questions of
exactly. I mean, anyone who's not asking questions is just not thinking.
Well, but that song did very well for you. It's been covered by a ton of people.
It did. It's been great to me. I'm very, very grateful to that song.
Did you sit down every day trying to write another One of Us?
Actually, I sometimes sit down and try not to.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I used up the God card on that one. I mean, there's really nowhere else to go. You know, I mean, believe me, I'm always listening in my head for the next big song, and you know, sometimes I get little hints of it, but you know, that song really sort of said it all for me as far as that subject goes.
Well,
at least for now.
Sticking on the God subject just a little bit, I know, like, you've written some religious/spiritual type songs with, you know, thematically, as far as maybe All You Zombies, Where Do the Children Go, Satellite, which was pretty much more of a mockery of maybe a conservative televangelism, Saint Teresa. But I read in an interview where you basically said that you weren't necessarily a religious or spiritual type person in that sense. What was your upbringing like?
I was raised very, very loosely Jewish. My background's Jewish. I was bar mitzvahed, but it's not something I really stayed with. I mean, I'm still fascinated by it. I do have occasional flirtations with it, but I'm sort of beyond signing off on any particular faith, as it were. The man of science. Yeah.
Well, science, you know, that could be the key to it. And, you know, the whole Big Bang thing to me sounds a lot like creation anyway. I don't know. It's all, people seem to be...
You know, that's the thing. It's all what you want to call it. I have a really, really great relationship with a minister in the neighborhood that I do things with him sometimes on his at his church, and it's great. We have a great dialogue going on, he and I, and you know, his thing is that we basically believe in the same things. We believe it have different names for it, and I'm totally cool with that. He thinks that I'm one of the most spiritual people he's met, and you know, I say, fine, if that's what you say, that's what I am for you. But you know, for me, it's such a big thing, and it's a really personal thing.
Right. Well, it definitely is. I just wanted to because I was doing a lot of research on this, and I couldn't actually find anything, you know, where they addressed, you know, what your upbringing was, because, you know, some of the songs just kind of, I mean, I remember Well, for instance, All You Zombies, I love that tune, and at the time I was wondering if it was like more of an allegory for what was going on in the modern day, or if it was.
Yeah, I think it is. I think those Moses, Noah, and all those. I think that's more it is an allegory. Those are cultural icons for us. I think as much as more than religious figures. They're characters that are part of our culture, part of our history, and I think everyone that touches anyone. As soon as you say Moses, Noah, it raises it creates pictures for someone, something they can relate to.
Yeah, because the Old Testament I don't think really is fodder for too many rock and roll songs. Maybe some.
It should be. It's there's some great stories in there.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely love that. I mean, my friends and I, it was one of our favorite songs in the '80s because it just felt like it was like the pre-apocalyptic anthem, in Reagan times. We're just hanging out waiting for the end to happen, and although the end hasn't really happened yet. Right.
Well, maybe it's happening.
We're still marching on.
Yes, we are. We are, and you know what? I think we will continue to march on.
In 1990, I got to see the Hooters as part of a Bill Bradley fundraiser in New Jersey, and from what I recall, that night you guys you guys played a blistering set of tunes. Do you remember that night?
I do very well. I got a little basketball from Bill that night.
Oh, cool! Did he autograph it?
Yes, he did. And the autograph has unfortunately faded over the years.
Now, are you prone to mixing music and politics, or was that like a one-time thing? Or I guess you did Amnesty too.
I'm not prone to it at all. If the right event comes up, I'll be happy to be a part of it. But I let the politicians be politicians, and I'm going to be a musician.
Well, any thoughts on the 2008 race? Because it's just been going on so long.
Yeah, well, that's all I can say is that I think a lot of us really are looking forward to 2009.
No doubt, Eric.
No doubt, and any change will be a good change at this point.
All right, just a couple more, Eric. What impact did growing up in the historic region of Philadelphia have on you growing up as a person?
Oh, tremendous! Philadelphia was and continues to be an amazing music town, and we were really fortunate to have some amazing shows and some great local musicians. And then in the '80s to have that amazing thriving local music scene that it really enabled us to do what we did.
Right. So it was good that you were there at the time.
Yep, very good that we were there at the time.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other thing. It's I say this to a lot of you guys who basically we started out today talking about the Beatles, and the Beatles pretty much set everything in motion. And then you had the rise of the record companies in the '70s. In the '80s, the media kind of converged to a point where you had set playlists on radio stations, and you had MTV, and then walk in the Hooters. It's all that architecture was built for a time that a handful of bands could step in and take advantage of.
Yep, we were really lucky. We were really lucky that we came around when MTV was just getting started and when they were actually playing music videos.
Because that doesn't exist anymore.
Not really. Everyone knows the exposure that you can get on the internet. How many bands are there on MySpace?
Yeah, a bunch.
But it's so easy to get lost in the shuffle with that.
How do you feel about American Idol as the modern day MTV?
I don't think it's the modern day MTV, but I think it's entertaining. I've been watching it.
In terms of breaking artists, it's generating a decent record for itself.
Yeah, it is. One or two artists a year. But then look at the kind of artists that they're generating. They're generating manufactured artists.
Yeah.
because once you graduate from that, you are basically owned by the record company and by TV.
Yeah, you'll forever be known as an American Idol artist.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I'm very impressed with what Daughtry's done with it. I think he's made a really good record. I guess the other ones have too. I just don't really pay much attention to it.
Yeah, Daughtry seems to be like the real deal, and he the fact that he was fourth and had the best-selling album in '07 is pretty amazing to me.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about the new album, Time Stands Still. We are talking with Eric Bazilian of the Hooters. HootersMusic.com is the website. First album for the Hooters in 14 years, I believe.
Yep, that's what it is.
And it's pretty good. I was listening to it several times. It seems like an older, a more mature album.
I've heard that. To me, it was just how we were feeling at the time.
Well, I mean,
which I guess is a little older and more mature.
Yeah, and the title with time, it seems to be like the passage of time is a theme in the record, and even the choice of the Boys of Summer record, kind of when I was listening to your version yesterday, I guess maybe because I was at a couple of wakes last week, but when going by your house and you're not home, and I was wondering I wonder if that means the person's not home for the day, or if the person's gone for good, and
right,
and then the Boys of Summer, that's gone, and so the element of time passing, I think, was definitely in the record. And don't get me wrong, the first two tracks, Kick, I'm Alive, and Time Stands Still, the title track, just rock really good. They open up the album, but it seemed like it was maybe a slightly different, compare it to the Hooters of 1985. I don't know if people will be dancing as much to this record.
I don't know. I hope so. I think they will be to I'm Alive.
Oh, yeah. And you don't have to play all the tracks off the record anyway, right?
Well, we do, actually.
Oh, yeah? You've been playing the whole album on your...
Pretty much. And different songs work in different parts of the show. Like Ordinary Lives, which is a very, very slow song, actually is really one of the most effective parts of the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes you got to bring it down to, build it up to bring it down. Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just...
you go to a U2 show, it's the same thing as they do Pride and I Will Follow and Vertigo, and it totally rocks. And then they'll do some of the slower numbers, and it's equally as exciting.
Right, and Bruce has been doing that a lot on the tour too, to get back to Bruce a little bit. Yeah, well, that's cool. Definitely dig the record, and it's good to have you guys back. You've kept a high profile in Europe, especially these last few years, going back over and touring there. I know that you have a good following in Germany. Have you guys ever considered bringing the German fans over to Philadelphia and having like a week-long Hooter Fest in Philly? Well,
the German fans do come when we play. We have, when we played at the Electric Factory, we had a group of them that came. There's a girl in Japan that comes to our show.
Yeah, because it's with the weak dollar, I mean, it's probably cost a lot to for us to travel over there, but they're getting a free ride coming over here about now.
Just about, yep. No, it's great for them.
Let's see. We're an alien themed website. Have you ever seen a UFO or had an experience with the paranormal?
Not while I was awake.
So you don't know.
I have not, but I'm totally open to it. It's funny because one of us is actually not far from that theme. The thing that was going through my mind when I wrote that song was, I was wondering what it would be like if you were confronted with undeniable proof that life exists on other planets, if you met an extraterrestrial, or if you were confronted with undeniable proof of the existence of God, which to me could be equally earth-shattering events. It was just the idea of having your entire belief system blown out of the water. And
right.
What happens then?
That was one of us?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people who say that, the truth will never get out there because it'll just shake the foundations of the world to the core, but maybe we need that.
Well, it'll happen when it happens. And, it always does happen eventually.
Oh, I had one other question. As far as the Hooters touring in the States, is there I know you're starting to get together some dates and you've played a few. Is there would there be an optimal setup for you guys as far as touring the States that, couple like 8 weeks out of the year, you do a run up and down the coast? Is there, if you had a perfect approach to it, is there something that you'd like to put?
Well, we have families, so it would be nice to have a couple weeks out, a week off, a couple weeks out, a week off. But at this point, I would tour as much as would make sense, because we've got a lot of lost time to make up for.
But we should expect to see more dates with the Hooters in the U.S.
I certainly hope so, and I think so.
Yeah, I hope so too, Eric, because we missed you in New York at BB King's, but I am definitely glad to have you guys back. It's been a long time. It's been great talking to you today, Eric.
Likewise.
All right, thanks for talking to Quevac.com, and I'll let you know when this is live and posted. And
fantastic.
Hopefully we'll see you on the road.
Okay, great. Pleasure talking with you.
Bye, Eric. Thanks.
Take care, man.
Thanks for listening to the Rockin' Rich Lynch on the Radio Show, part of the SoundPress.net radio network. Remember, if you're a band or artist looking for promotion, or if you'd like to sponsor this show or add this program to your station, please get in touch with us today at SoundPress.net.